That's the Ben 10 intro. Sounds kind of spooky, doesn't it? A little bit spooky, but I've been just looking through my feed of just all the videos that I've created, and I see some videos here that's kind of juiced up on that fear factor, and honestly, since we're in that holiday festive mood, we're in the season, we might as well cook up some scary stuff here and full send it. And today we're going to be talking about characters that you will never want to see in the field. These guys are the final bosses, and you do not want to approach them once you're either in your recovery stage or in your training stage. If you see any version of these characters meet these villains early on or when they're injured, let's just call it a buck and say they are unfathomably cooked. And a lot of us, we like to say, oh, I'm Batman, oh, I'm Superman, oh, I'm Spider-Man, but we only want to deal with the benefits. We do not want to talk about the negatives, because if you had to deal with these characters on a daily basis, you guys would change your mind up so quick, it's not even funny. And I'm not even calling you guys out, because I'm exactly the same with you. I am not going to risk my life just for the sake of superpowers, especially when it will lead to these types of beatings. And these characters, what makes them so special is that it leads to one of two things. One, it leads to a lot of hype moments, because a lot of things happen when they appear and a lot of crazy fights occur. The second thing that will happen is a lot of devastating trauma that will irreparably change your lives forever. Irreparably, what word am I trying to say right now? How many takes am I doing right now? Okay, let's just say it will change your lives forever. Holy, I have never done that many takes in my life. Somebody add me to the stuttering compilation, because I never want that to happen to me again. But either way, to segue a little bit, the character that I want to talk about comes from the Absolute universe, and I am surprised I haven't talked about the Absolute or the Ultimate universe in a long time. I don't even know if I ever mentioned them in this channel the entirety of how long I've been doing this for, like almost a year, half a year. That is kind of crazy considering how popular they are. Have you guys seen the news how the Ultimate Universe is closing shop next year, early next year, for the 2-year anniversary? It sucks, but at least they're ending on their own terms. My goat Scott Snyder said that they're playing the Absolute Universe on the long game. They're going to have at least 50 issues, maybe even 100, hopefully, of these series. So we know what's happening with DCKO. It's not going to erase them from continuity, and it's going to make sure that there's an epic, long, multi-year wide span plan for these characters and for Darkseid, and of course the mainline universe to come, which is very exciting. But the character that I want to talk about is Absolute Bane. Now, this guy, it's a bit of a meme, but honestly, every single thing that Alfred said has come to fruition. This man really is the scariest guy I've ever seen in my life. The amount of parallels that have been made between Absolute Batman and Berserk is not only astounding, but scary. I fear for Bruce in the next upcoming issues, because how could it be so one-to-one while also being so surprising whenever anything happens? Like, they are on the ball when it comes to the writing of this series. And I'm going to have to start a petition. Every single time you see somebody say Spider-Man writers, we gotta erase and veto that from existence. We have used that way too much, and he doesn't even have the worst life of a bunch of these heroes. Well, I guess the reason why we used it was because he had a lot of bad writers, and writers who wanted and plotted the worst for him. But now we gotta say Absolute Batman writers. This is the new meme. This is my new vocation. We are going to stand by it. Everyone, I don't know what to call you guys, but everyone here, make sure to have the pinky promise right now. I'm gonna have like a little pinky promise thing prompt on the screen, if I could even do that. Production myself, somebody will do that. But either way, that is going to be our agenda that we push. But he appeared in Absolute Batman number 9. And here, his first appearance, it's really a showstopper. It keeps you down in your tracks, like you don't know what to do because you're absolutely fear-stricken, just like how Batman should be. But he is all talk and walk, so you know that he had no fear going into it. And he was throwing his Talon cape at him, and brother said, "You can advance now." Isn't that crazy? Then he started analyzing all of his martial arts moves and slowly but surely picking him apart, using pressure points to disable his limbs. It's insane because he is giving him a prep talk while he's doing it. He's like, "Hey, look up, look at me. Hey, I'm up here, buddy. That's right, you still got your legs." Isn't that insane while beating his ass? Like, why would you ever decide to do that? That is next level disrespect. But on top of that, Bruce calls him out for being a druggie, for being on something that's giving him more strength. Possibly like steroids, that's probably what Bruce was thinking. But he was like, juiced up, friend, I'm not even on the stuff yet. You want to see what it does? And he used it, and you can see Batman's face right here. And he even says, what are you? As he transforms into a giant kaiju. How much? Somebody estimate how tall he is, because Batman, he's like 6'8", 6'9", somewhere around there, 6'7", 6'7". I'm brain rotted. I'm not even a part of that generation. What am I doing? But this man is tall, and from here, Bruce goes through pain. The suffering is honestly next level. Bane takes him to Arkham, where he is experimented upon through a bunch of superhuman enhancing, let's say experiments, and each and every one that's done to him should kill him. They have to rip him open multiple times just to add it, and he's stuck exactly in an insane asylum but dialed up to 11 because this is the Absolute Universe. We have like Clayface here, who's like a bunch of clay bodies. We have like Poison Ivy, who's a jungle of like a zombie plant, whatever, I don't even know. But the worst part about all of this is that every single time that he tries to escape, which was like 2 times before his eventual 3rd success, he ends up getting caught by Bane. And the worst part about all of this is that he says keep trying, please, because he's trying to test his resolve. So he's giving him some level of hope because he almost gets out of there only to get dragged straight back. It's violent, brutal, and very excessive, but they're trying to turn him into basically the next enforcer of Arkham and I guess the Joker. And man, we haven't even talked about the Joker. We don't even have the final issue of the Abomination arc with Bane, so there's probably going to be more crazy stuff that happens. And Joker, we have seen some rough sketches of what it's going to look like in the comic itself, and Bruce is not going to have a fun time, let me tell you that. But going back to Arkham, he is broken to the point where he sees his mask and it's haunting him. And he's like, it's over, leave me alone, don't you get it? There is no winning. He's talking to himself, but in reality, he's also developing the Batman persona here. He can't stop the calling, and it leads to a really cool splash page here of him trying to get out. But then again, it leads to him having a whole confrontation with Absolute Killer Croc and a bunch of other crazy experiments. Thankfully, the roller coaster of death ends right here. But then we move on to the next issue, issue number 11, and here we see a dream of what would have happened if Bane decided to put all of his energy into killing Batman, and it is brutal. He beats him up, uses his own axe, cuts off both of his arms, and breaks his head open, cracks it with his own axe, and we can see his eyeball literally spilling out of his head. But instead, he's like, you know what? I want to make you suffer as much as you possibly can. I want to make you be like me. I'm trying to change you systematically in the worst way possible. So he goes after his friends. And from here, dude, this guy is a demon. And as Classic Man D once said, he is Satan's greatest soldier because he is not only superhumanly strong, stronger than the mainline counterparts, he's also as intelligent. And Bruce, in this timeline, all of his friends are the villains that you would usually see in his rogues gallery. And from here, we're gonna go straight through the list of what he does to Penguin, Two-Face, and Riddler. So with Penguin here, we learn that he breaks all of his bones, some in multiple places, but somehow they missed every vital organ. It was precise, surgical, cruel beyond measure. If Oswald lives, he will be almost 2 feet shorter, and his hands and his feet, well, they'll basically be like penguins, as you might expect. And honestly, this is one of the most gruesome, violent, and crazy things that I've possibly ever seen in a comic. I had to turn my eyes away from it the first time around, but he's doing all of this on purpose, as we could see with his monologue with the next runner-up here, which is what he does to Two-Face. He actively splits his skull, he crushes it down the center, and he gave him 3rd and 4th degree burns across the left side of his body, so that's straight 50%. He even did a full analysis on Harvey, like if he was a doctor. He's like, you must be the big brother of this little group, you must be that protector, but you are fooling yourself. You're also destined to be the traitor because your friends, they're all outlaws. And you, with your principles, your ambitions, those eyes, you stick with these losers, they'll bring you down hard. That is what Flash told him as a kid. You established this ritual long ago, didn't you? This poker game, a safe space, where the stakes are void, where you can be both forever. Outlaw and lawman, friend and enemy, a microcosm, gambling for plastic coins, all pretend. But the time for pretending is over as he burns half of his face and pushes it down in literally a bunch of gasoline on some Christopher Nolan Dark Knight type beat, but obviously much worse. And finally, what he did to Riddler is probably the worst in terms of like everything here, because he needed cybernetic enhancements. And here he says that he was very gentlemanly. Okay, Riddler, what are you trying to ball right now? He challenged me to a friendly battle of wits. That's what you see this as, buddy? Okay. And he's like, I'll bet you like riddles. And what he does here is you could see him put his hands down his eyes. Before he knew it, he was shaking his head, slamming the front of his brain into his skull. So the frontal lobe here is all cooked, the part that is responsible for intelligence. And suddenly facts then became questions. Questions everywhere. So he didn't hurt him at all, is what he's saying here. He was challenging him, maybe challenging all of them to become what they were meant to be. And then Bruce gets so pissed off that a bunch of venom starts sparking through his arms, and Riddler here notices that he challenged him too. So he asks him, he poses the question, riddle me this, what are you going to do about it? This man, I gotta reiterate, is the scariest man I've ever met in my life, and we still have one more issue left to see the conclusion of all of this. And knowing Scott Snyder, we have not seen the half of it. I'm probably going to have to make a part 2 when we see Absolute Joker and Scarecrow, because those are unfortunately the runner-ups for my man Bruce here, and he's going to need all the help that he can get. Thankfully, Catwoman is now on his side. He got a Brazilian baddie with him at all measures, so at least he is winning sometimes. The next big bad that I want to talk about is the monster who killed Hope itself, and of course that is Doomsday. Now, Doomsday is, for all intents and purposes, another brute for Superman to punch, but what makes him interesting, in my opinion, is that he is the embodiment of inevitability. If you go back in time, he was created during the depths of that prehistoric Krypton era and was engineered to survive a lot of punishment through a bunch of endless death cycles, and each time that he was regrown, he was immune to whatever killed him in the first place. So from a conceptual level, if you think about it, he is evolution weaponized, a creature that could adapt off of anything. So this already makes him unstoppable. Think Darth Vader from Fallen Order. It is that bad, and I don't know worse, because, you know, if you level out the playing field, it is pretty much the same. Cal Kestis is nowhere near Darth Vader levels, but side tangent aside, he is that unstoppable thing in the way of Superman, and it just mocks the entire idea of overcoming evil, because he will always be back. In Joshua Williamson's current run in issues, I'm pretty sure 19 to 25, we learn that Doomsday, through repeated deaths and fights with Superman, he becomes the Time Trapper. He literally evolves to the point where he has control and dominion over time, but at the same time, Superman is also evolving in power and strength. And if Superman killed him one more time, he would have become a god for all intents and purposes. Not a pseudo-god, a literal one. So that tells you how this debate and feud with their powers, and of course just conceptual ideology, what both of them stand for, it will go on forever, right? He represents the one thing, pure, unreasonable destruction. He can't fight against that. He can't appeal to Doomsday's humanity. You can't even try to use talk no jutsu, because it will never work. He doesn't even talk unless we're talking about the more evolved versions. He doesn't even want revenge, he just wants to end life. He is a killing machine. It's as if he has some sort of vendetta onto nature itself. In the Death of Superman run in 1992, the most famous thing that he has been a part of, and his debut issue, his first appearance, we see a bird fall into his hand while he's in his green containment suit, and he just lets it chirp for a little bit and then crushes it in its hands. He's even like crushed kids in front of him just for the sake of having an experiment to see if he'll feel anything if he'll feel bad killing, and he doesn't. He's trying to find ways to stop himself. That's how much of a demon this man is. Is he even a man? What would you even consider Doomsday? A specimen? The ultimate is what his creators called him. But the fight in this comic, it was so primal. There wasn't any grand speech or strategy. It was just Doomsday tearing through the defenses of the Justice League, the kind of lame Justice League if I'm gonna be honest, because the JLA, the one that we all know from 1996 I'm pretty sure, hadn't even formed. What Doomsday fought was basically what we would consider the reserves in modern day, the reserve lineup, not the main 7. But either way, it's not about saving the world at this point when Superman is fighting them in this all-out brawl. It's about stopping the apocalypse with his own body, right? That is an extinction level event that he's fighting right in front of him, and if he dies without defeating him, it will literally lead to Metropolis and the world, and maybe even the universe as a whole, becoming rubble. And for once, Superman's ultimate strength, his willpower, wasn't actually enough, but he did save everyone, but he could not save himself. He wasn't unscathed. But obviously Doomsday didn't stay buried, and I'm pretty sure after this he does come back relatively quickly in Doomsday Hunter Prey, and Superman has a very scary realization. He realizes that he cannot win. Doomsday is a living reset button that ensures that there's no such thing as that permanent victory. He's always going to have to repeat these levels. You know, like when you're in New Game Plus and you repeat something just for the sake of having fun? This is exactly the opposite, but mirrored, because Superman's always going to have to fight Doomsday. If I'm gonna drop some video game lingo for some reason, you guys still play games anymore? I'm waiting, praying for a Superman game to come out, because when that happens, I'm going to be back in business. But yeah, what makes it terrifying is that every time he returns, it shows Superman and the readers that even gods can bleed. And even if you have some sort of perfect morality, it can't stop something like chaos coming in and triumphing all at once at the end. And if you're somebody as powerful as Doomsday, you have the abilities to make that happen. Okay, I just saw the next person on my list. We have Superboy Prime, the next one up. Thankfully, right now, in current continuity, he is a good guy, and prayers and fingers crossed, he is going to be the star of the new Legion of Superheroes run that comes out next year by Joshua Williamson. It seems something that's right up his alley, and it would be an instant layup, an alley-oop for just W content. But Superboy, and the terror that you feel when you fight him, is that you know you're about to be put into a compilation. He's going to beat you so badly that you're going to be on the feed, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And also, you know it's going to have severe changes to the entirety of the DC universe. There's going to be a fight that changes the way that your peers look at you, and that is all there is to it. He isn't evil because he wants power or revenge. He's evil because he can't accept what the world really is, and, you know, I guess he does kind of have a point, because if you have power, you have the ability to change the world however you want to, and you saw the DC universe slowly becoming more dark and cynical, way further than the DC universe that he is familiar with. So it led to him being very resentful, which I'm sure you would too if the characters and the version of the characters that you loved slowly but surely change into edgelord slop. Granted, I loved Post-Crisis, but if you are a Silver/Bronze Age fan and you are a purist, that is what you're going to see if you see this, right? It's a huge meta commentary, and the rampage that he had tore through the fabric of reality itself, literally rewriting continuity through his frustration. He believed that all of these heroes are too much of a failure, too flawed, too compromised, and I guess too human. He becomes obsessed with the idea of what is that true Superman. He can be that guy. He could finally fix things. It's like seeing an unleashed god fueled entirely by unsatiated, unchecked, wounded ego, and having so much nostalgia in your brain is just unhealthy. Even if you look at just normal occurrences, this guy of course dialed it up to 11, but even in your everyday life, nostalgia just pulls you back and keeps you in the past, and that is all that Superboy had to hold on to, because his entire world and the people that he loved was taken away from him. So in that moment, he had beef, generational beef, with the entirety of the DC universe, and he started putting paws on the Teen Titans, actively killing, ripping off their arms, punching their heads in, laser beaming them into a crisp, Like, he was using every arsenal in his toolbox to get rid of as many heroes as he could. Yes, he kind of blamed it on him not being able to control his powers, but at the end of the day, that rage was still inside you. The fire in your heart was still burning to make you throw that punch. But those are all B and C listers. He even ends up killing some of the big dogs. He ends up destroying Superboy, Connor Kent. He tears through an entire Green Lantern Corps, frost breathing a bunch of them, running through them so they were shattered into a million pieces. He even fights Superman, both the post-crisis version and the Kal-El version. I'm pretty sure it was either Earth 1 or Earth 2. I forgot exactly which number correlates with which, but he does end up killing the previous Superman before the post-crisis version could stop him. But the funniest and worst part about all of this is that Superboy Prime doesn't stay gone. He's completely self-aware of what he is. In stories like Sinestro Corps War, like Blackest Night, like DC Universe Rebirth, and even, of course, the modern day, he breaks the fourth wall, complaining about DC editors, complaining about continuity changes, completely rage-baiting the readers themselves, because he was rage-baited himself just by how the DC universe is flowing and the progression that was taking them onto that darker path. I honestly would not be surprised in the slightest if he had a vendetta to go and punch his way into our real world and create a genocide, because that is the energy that he shows off in these books. He hates us, and he blames the real world for turning his bright, hopeful dream into a grim universe, and he's lashing out at not only the characters themselves, but on creators and fans alike. Thankfully, he has had a redemption arc, but imagine if that was not the case, we would all be cooked. But moving our way to the Marvel side, we have the Spider-Man villain himself that basically changed how we looked at Marvel and Spider-Man's rogues forever, and that is the Morlin from J. Michael Straczynski's run. If you've been around the Spider Block for a bit, you know that this fight between Spidey and Morlin is one of the most cited fights there is, especially with all those TikTok edits. You know, I'm Spider-Man, you better start acting like it. And the one where he's like, I'm tired, and he's been fighting with him for at least almost about 12-24 hours going straight at it, and he's wondering and contemplating the effect of responsibility in his life. Can he let Morlin be somebody else's problem? Maybe somebody who could defeat him much easier. But the thing about him is that he doesn't just hunt him, he feeds on him, and it leads to the whole multiversal Spider-Man stuff that they were building up in the late 2000s, early 2010s, because he is, for all intents and purposes, a vampire who consumes the life forces of totems, spider totems, people with arachnid abilities, and from here he realized that he has and he represents primal connections between man and beast. To Morlin, Spider-Man isn't just a superhero, he's like what a cannibal sees when he looks at his prey. He's meat in the purest essence that there can be, because he is the originator, the starter, the OG, 616 Spider-Man. That's what makes him terrifying, because he doesn't fight against Spider-Man's ideology, he doesn't fight for revenge, he just hurts him because he must. He's inevitable, he's an apex predator. There is no good and evil when it comes to vampires of his caliber. In Spider-Man, I'm pretty sure the Amazing Spider-Man 30 to 36, Spider-Man has no idea what he's up against because Morlin just tracks him in the streets across the city, absorbing every punch, every blow that he could possibly give to him, studying all of his movements kind of like Kraven, but he's much more vicious. Spider-Man hits him with everything that he can, webs, strength, he uses intellect, and every single time and every single plan that he makes, it fails. For the first time, I believe Peter realizes that he is completely outclassed in a 1v1. And you have to remember, this is the guy who outsmarted characters like Juggernaut and managed to beat them. Despite all odds, he found a way. So if you see Peter saying this is impossible, you know there is a problem. He's the type of guy to say that I'm not exactly hunting you because I hate you on some reverse flash type. He's saying I hunt you because you're beautiful. You are the essence of what I need. It's one of the most chilling things a Spider-Man villain could possibly do, because no one else is doing it like Morlin. He's doing it purely for the love of the game and for survival. Other characters have vendettas like Venom early on and Green Goblin, but he is different. When they finally clash in the other storyline, it becomes way worse, because Morlin, from what I remember, breaks into Peter's home, brutally beats him, and feeds on him, and he even ends up taking out his own eye. That is the level of intimate horror that Peter has to face because he is literally playing with his prey. He feels unstoppable, and when Peter finally evolves as a spider totem to be in a more vicious spider form, think of it like Kane, because he had the same abilities as Kane, the stingers, the spider transformations, the night vision eyes, because he was the previous owner or holder of the other spirit and power. And he ends up killing him, but it feels less like a triumph and more like fighting the animal deep inside him. He's fighting the animal that is fighting against extinction. Conceptually, Morlin here is everything Spider-Man fears most, being powerless, being prey, and being nothing more than a freak accident of nature. All of the morality, all the heroism is stripped away. It's just pure brawling. And of course, we do see him later on in the Spider-Verse story, and we see him scale a lot more higher than Peter. I don't exactly like the Spider-Verse story at all, and I'm not going to even pretend that I'll be able to recite the things that happened, but he does end up killing a bunch of fan favorites like 1602 Spider-Man, even Spider-Man Noir temporarily, but Spider-Man Noir of course has the ability to resurrect himself, kind of like Moon Knight. The only ideology I could give to him is that everything that crawls must be crushed. He is death draped in elegance, and that's what made him so special in his early incarnations. Sadly though, he has lost a bit of his spark. Oh, here we go, new challenger approaches and he's destroying the walkway. The thing about Galactus here is that I honestly was contemplating if I should put this man on the list because he is kind of a jobber, but for the sake of the culture and the fact that he was a main boss in LEGO Marvel Superheroes, in Ultimate Alliance, and in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, he has to be on this list because he has been final boss to so many of my favorite games of my childhood. So I'm just giving you some pity points, but in general, when he is written correctly, he's not even a villain. He's like a law that must be endured, a law that is literally entrenched. You can't do anything about it. He will destroy planets, not because he wants to, but because he must. He is that balance between life and death. Conceptually, what is Galactus? He is horror in the form of basically necessity. You can't do anything against him. He's like a universal reminder that some things are actually way too big to be contained by morality. In his first appearance, his first big story, in Fantastic Four 48 to 50, the Galactus trilogy, he wasn't just another enemy to be outsmarted. Reed Richards, one of the smartest men on the planet, couldn't do anything despite being the man who solves everything. He was so immense that logic just felt useless. They couldn't defeat him, they had to appeal to him, and at the end of the day, the only thing that stopped his consumption of the Earth was Silver Surfer and his rebellion, the ultimate weapon itself, the ultimate nullifier, and sheer desperation. That was the only thing that halted his consumption of our little big globe here. He always returns though, even when you stop him, and even when he had that really short period when he was transformed into the Lifebringer in his golden and white form, creating life instead of devouring it, it still felt wrong, like a storm, a thunderstorm with a bunch of clouds trying to pretend to be sunlight. You can't physically do it because deep down we all know the nature of the Marvel Universe. The hunger itself will return. The scariest thing, in my opinion, about Galactus is that when he kills billions, he doesn't do it out of malicious intent. He's not Carnage. He's completely detached, cold, indifferent. He doesn't care who lives and who dies. If you're in my way and I need energy to survive, well, 2 and 2 make 4, you gotta go. It's sad that that's the reality, but that is the ultimate philosophical nightmare that heroes have to deal with. How do you fight against something that must exist? Every universe, no matter what it is, must have a Galactus. The star systems itself demand it. What will you do to contain this destruction? That is the question that must be answered every single time Galactus knocks on our door. In a way, he is a horror movie villain. You can't stop him. You can only hope that he doesn't find you next. Am I a poet? Hello? Dude, that was off the top of the dome. I guess I should be writing. Let me make my own comic, dude. I am ready. But the thing is, why I didn't want to put Galactus here is that he's kind of a bum. This man got 1v1'd by Susan Storm in that movie by herself. Granted, she is super powerful, but for one member of the Fantastic Four to do any dent, you didn't need all 4 of them to do something at the same time? kinda crazy. But at least you had Ghost Rider use his pen and stare on you and it didn't work, so you do have a bit of a lob, but that isn't even all that impressive considering you, possibly your grandmother, Billy Kincaid, Nemesis, and maybe even Judge Holden would be able to survive the pen and stare. So Ghost Rider, you gotta bring up your bag. It's not looking good out here, but Galactus, you do have a good showing, so you're on the list now. Congratulations. And finally, for the Marvel side, we have the Fusion. It was literally just a combination of Omega level mutants, Professor X, and Magneto. But imagine the power scaling when it comes to both these characters inhabiting one singular body, because not only do they have both of their abilities, they also have some emotions to draw upon. They have Magneto and all of his rage, his hatred, and his trauma, and then we have Xavier here with all of his repressed anger and guilt. This made them a literal biblical level threat to the Marvel universe. The stakes were high. When I tell you his KD ratio was actually insane, he went up against, I don't know, like was it basically a 100-to-1 knockdown brawl between him and the heroes of the Marvel universe, and he ended up killing a bunch of them, destroying the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Hulk, Doctor Doom. A lot of them were on his kill feed. If not, they were severely damaged, and it led to people like Franklin Richards having to create a whole new universe just for them to survive. And even though everything was set back to normal, he was the prime goal. He wanted Franklin Richards' power. Isn't that crazy? This is the villain that you have to keep an eye on, because not only was he trying to add his power to his own, he was trying to steal the power of Nate Gray, which, if you don't know, is a version of Cable who didn't have the techno-organic virus, so his telepathy and telekinetic abilities surpassed even his mother's, so you know that he was a problem. On top of that, he actually clawed his way into that Heroes Reborn universe that Franklin created, killing a bunch of the heroes there. He was doing all-time Hall of Famer numbers just to get to this kid, and imagine if he had his powers as well, the entire multiverse would not be safe from his wrath. He would not be able to be stopped, because he would just be able to think, oh, everybody here, I want you to become a bunch of ants, and then I'm going to step on all of you as I collectively bring all of you together in the size of my giant foot. Like, this is the type of creativity and goblin energy that he has. And you guys think I'm joking, but we've seen him literally try to create a collective consciousness, subjugating everybody in humanity and even mutant kind to be under his boot, right? To create peaceful unity between these two races. But if you look deeper within his goals and his actions, you know he is darkly twisting all of them to fit the ideals that he created for himself. And if they were fighting against it somehow, you know that he would just go scorched earth on the planet and just say, you know what, maybe you all just gotta go. But anyways, guys, what do you guys think? Who are your favorite final bosses in comics? Oh, what do we have here? Do you guys think that I was gonna forget about the greatest writer at DC at the moment? Hello? Who do you think I am, guys? Darkseid is also not just making the best writing plays, he is making the best financial moves for DC. He is carrying them on his back. He's like, you know what, let's make a DC KO fighting tournament that could possibly have some video game synergy. NetherRealm, you have your blueprint right here. But overall, the coolest thing about this man right now that makes him head and shoulders above everybody else is how strong he is and how creative his mind is at the same time. To give you guys a bit of a layout, let's start at the beginning of DC KO, and we see Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, the DC Trinity, playing a board game. But all of a sudden, this man Darkseid spawned in and started spawn wiping everybody in Metropolis. And not only that, he managed to get rid of Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman in record time. You would think this guy is speedrunning, on top of the fact that he's existing in many places at the same time, fighting in different battlefronts. He's fighting in Gotham, Oa, the Rock of Eternity, Themyscira, he's everywhere. And Superman, using his eyes and all the abilities that he has, he can see that every time he's fighting, he is turning the particles, the atoms, every single piece of material there is into himself. The landscape is becoming Darkseid, and then using his super hearing, he could hear multiple heartbeats becoming a chant, literally becoming Darkseid himself. And after killing all of the superheroes, we realize he was actually in the future. But then we go back into the past. We see the Quantum Quantorum, which consists of Booster Gold, Time Trapper Doomsday, and the World Forager, going to the previous versions of our heroes and telling them what they're up against and briefing them on how the battle is going to go. And then we get notified by this group that Darkseid is actually fighting all of time and space, literally working his way back to where the heroes are. So now they realize, the Justice League, the Teen Titans, the JSA, all of the big teams in DC, that they now have to take the offensive. They can't stay back and play second fiddle. They have to go straight towards him and go into this tournament. And this tournament here that Darkseid created is very similar to the Mortal Kombat tournament that we all know of, except everyone here has been friends and family for years, and they have to kill each other, and that there is multiple rounds. And if you die, you can actually get brought back as previous or even future versions of yourself. Spoiler alert, Superman and Captain Atom will be fighting. Superman wins that first round, and then Captain Atom comes back as Monarch, a stronger evil version of himself, containing all the powers that he needs to win. So these fights are going to be crazy, but he rigged it so that everybody has to fight in the most malicious way possible. The more darker you are, the more violent that you are, the more like Darkseid that you are, the more Omega energy that you will gain, the more tools that you will have at your disposal, the more powers that you may obtain. Like Harley Quinn, she ends up getting the Speed Force. If my eyes are not deceiving me, I see a bunch of electricity around her, and that could only mean one thing. If I don't see a costume change, it is more likely than not the Speed Force. Anywho, at the end of this tournament, after betraying and killing everyone that you love and being the last one standing, you will be filled with enough Omega energy to fight against Darkseid himself, and if you win, you will become the King Omega and have dominion over reality itself, so that you will become the one sole god of the universe, shaping matter as you see fit. And of course, if a hero wins in a tournament, it leads to them resurrecting everybody who died. If a villain wins, say goodbye, you're cooked. But Darkseid, he has cooked up a really magnificent script if the DCKO first issue is anything to go by, really leading everybody to delve into the darkest pits of their heart, bringing up all of their worst impulses to win the day, actually forcing character regression for the sake of the universe. And we didn't even talk about the cluster that he's done to the Absolute Universe, and even if he is going to spawn them into this tournament as well. That might happen, that might not happen, but at the end of the day, when all things are said and done, he is making power plays to disrupt the heroes, even possessing Booster Gold's body to be a double agent. This man is 5D chessing against heroes who are effectively, if we look at the perspective between him and the DC Universe, they're playing on a 2D scale. That is how high above Darkseid is when compared to everyone else. But yeah guys, those are my favorite final bosses, the scariest final bosses in comics in my opinion. If you have any other characters that you want to shout out, leave it down in the comments down below. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. And yeah, see you all later, take care, deuces, peace.